Hey everybody, Ryan here with another episode of Chairsoft Chat here at CENSUS Airsoft, joining you guys on this beautiful, really warm spring day. The weather has been really picking up here. I'm here to introduce you to someone that I've really been looking forward to having on the chat, and someone that I think is kind of a bit of a staple in the gear making community in Toronto and in Canada as a whole, and that is going to be the man behind Persec Gear. The belts, the videos that we've all done, all feature his products in a lot of ways. And for those of you who don't know, Barry.
Yes.
That is the guy here. Is there, first of all, is there a team behind Persec Gear, or is it just...
No, Persec is just me. I mean, by the way, thanks for having me. It's great to be here. I've went through all of the videos just to see what I was getting myself into.
Did you actually?
I did.
Oh, you're the worst. You're the worst.
Hey, man, research.
Yeah?
But
well,
no,
are you happy with what you saw?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Thanks for having me. But yes, Persec Gear is just me.
Barry has been really generous to us, and for all of our viewers, followers, and all that stuff out there, we are going to be doing a giveaway, and the details of that giveaway can be found on Instagram or Facebook, so be sure to check out our Instagram or Facebook for the post with the giveaway details. We'll include that in the description down below. So, for those of you who don't know, what is Persec Gear, just as an introduction? Like, you know, how would you describe...
Persec Gear is the company that was never meant to be.
Yes.
It just kind of happened. So if someone would have said to me 5 years ago, Barry, you're going to have this company, it's going to be yours, you're going to be making gear, you're going to be selling stuff, I would have just laughed at you. It just kind of happened, you know. Just
serendipitous.
You want the long and dirty version of this?
You know what? That is the first question. So yeah, like, what is the history behind getting to this point where you're making your own kit? Maybe your history with a little bit of like airsoft stuff too.
Sure.
Sorry to interrupt, but most people don't know a lot of gear companies got started with airsoft.
Yeah, that is true.
Barry's one of them.
Yeah.
So go ahead. You have the floor.
So I'm going to show my age here, but I learned to sew.
You're 25, right?
No. No, but I learned to sew in junior high school in home ec. I don't even know if that's still a thing these days.
It's probably called something else now, but I'm pretty sure it's still a thing. I remember like people walking around with the toy babies when I was in high school, and that wasn't as long ago.
No, we didn't do that. We learned to sew, make sloppy joes and French toast.
So you have no idea how to carry a baby?
No.
Oh,
no. So, but no, I learned to sew there, and luckily had a sewing machine at home, you know, thanks to Mom. And, you know, realistically, it was just brought out a couple times a year just to, you know, whether it be to like hem a pair of jeans or fix a backpack or something, you know, turn a pair of jeans into shorts.
That's pretty cool nowadays.
Yeah. So that was pretty much the extent of my sewing until I would say maybe around about 2006. And that's when I got involved in paintball, which then quickly morphed into airsoft, which then morphed into shooting real guns, and here we are. But the thing was, I mean, for the guys that have probably, whether it be in shooting sports or airsoft, the world of gear as it exists today in 2021 was not the case back in 2005.
Oh, it's so saturated now, just like everything.
Oh yeah. I mean, realistically, it was LBT, it was Eagle Industries, Paraclete, and
was Cry around back then or not?
They started coming around, but with their sort of weird, I wouldn't say weird, but very futuristic designs. I don't know if the guys remember much about the very Gen 1 outfits and their plate carrier. Yeah. It was futuristic, but you know,
born out of a lot of raid mods. And stuff, right. Yeah.
But I mean, so gear just wasn't like it was, or is rather, and you know, so you sort of was forced to kind of get surplus stuff, and it was made for guerrillas, not for small people like me. Yeah. So there was obviously always modding to be done. Or twigs
like I.
Yeah, right. So there was always modding to be done. You know, it was make a strap shorter. You know, maybe replace a buckle with Velcro, or you know, or add a couple of things of Molly. And it just, and you know, obviously knowing how to sew was just a great benefit to do all of that stuff. And then, you know, belts, which was kind of where I got my foothold, my foot in the door, so to speak. Had always been the bane of my existence, and so I started making some belts. And it was just kind of one of those things that, you know, I made one for myself, and a friend saw it, goes, hey, can you make me one? It's like, yeah, okay, sure. And then, you know, next thing you know, hey, I saw so-and-so, and he told me that you made him a belt. Can you make me one? So things just kind of picked up and just snowballed into what you know today.
Yeah, and I love that story. It's like something you learn in like economics or business class in university, how it literally just starts with finding a gap in the market, making something for yourself, and kind of going on with that. So to double back a bit, you started playing paintball, you said.
Yep.
And then you got into airsoft and then real guns, and you know, now you kind of do mostly just the last two, or I don't think you do paintball at all anymore.
Oh no, paintball is that's gone.
Yeah.
Sorry, paintball.
We love you guys.
Sorry,
really.
paintball.
Yeah. Do you actually have paintball guys behind your stuff? I'm just curious.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I have a demographic. I know what it is, kind of. Yeah. But ultimately, who the end user is, I couldn't tell you. You know.
So getting started in 2005 with airsoft and stuff like that, and you said the gear market there was so immature and not immature but undeveloped, and like not as saturated as it is now. Like now they got a solution for everything. It's like, oh, you want a little bit more stretch in your plate carrier, you can buy like a little piece of this, or you want some of that. So before, back then, I think a lot more stuff was, would you say, more like big army military oriented? And
it was all surplus, right?
Yeah.
You know, I guess like the turn is when a lot of these guys were coming back from, you know, Afghanistan, Iraq, or what have you, and, you know, sort of understood the deficiencies of the gear that they were issued, and, you know, they come back to get out of the service, and it's kind of like, hey, well, how can I parlay my experience into, you know, another career? So, you know, they sort of took what they knew and, you know, and just started making gear, and that's when you started things starting to change, you know, just more and more companies coming out, better accessibility, and just the whole market just kind of just shot straight up. But back then, it was, when I first got involved in it, it was just, it was very hard to get. I mean, eBay was your friend.
Yeah, I hate eBay.
Yeah, I mean, but back then that's what it was. You know, you were just buying a lot of stuff from eBay, and, you know, you get like a 6094,
huge Paraclete,
Cirrus plate carrier, and
like the huge giant war belts, that Zimming still loves. Sorry. I mean, he brings up some good points with him,
but I mean, that's what it was, and, you know, luckily things have changed. But like you said, I mean, there is a solution to any problem you have now.
Yeah, and I think the gear world now is just so. It's so innovative, and it's so hard to keep up with all these changes. It's like we went from giant chest rig that you can fit probably 2 people in to like little ones, like tiny ones. And do you think the trend that we're seeing is kind of like smaller, faster, lighter generally, or would you say it depends?
Yeah, because I mean, I think so. I mean, it's, you know, going back, you know, the one of the first things that I can remember seeing was this when 500D or 500 Denier Cadora came out, which is like the fabric that all of our stuff is made
most of the stuff is made of 500D.
And it was always 1000D, and then when 500D came out, and it was, you know, lighter and
more flexible.
You know, that was the first sort of like innovation I could that I saw personally. And then, you know, the design part of it came in. Like, you didn't need these plate carriers or chest rigs with, you know, 10 layers of Cadora. So things started to get scaled back. Material science was coming into play. You know, it was the Cadora was the first thing, and then you started seeing a lot of elastic come into play. And then Hypalon, which is like a rubbery type material.
Yeah, that's the stuff that the JPC straps are made of, right?
Exactly. And that came into, and laser cutting became a thing. So all of this material science and production science is, but I mean, it comes from, you know, well, you got Arc'teryx and Patagonia, which do have their military lines.
Yes.
But even within their civilian lines, you can throw North Face, Columbia, and the myriad of other outdoor apparel companies that are always pushing that envelope of not only design, but material science. So, yeah, I mean, of course, all of that stuff is going to filter in. And, you know, going back to Cry Precision, I mean, that guy is a designer.
Yeah.
And, you know, as far as I know, doesn't have any military experience or anything of that nature. I don't know. But, yeah, I mean, he started off, you know, as a designer and started designing things that way.
So there's obviously been a lot of developments in material science and stuff like that, trickling down from probably a lot of the engineering world and even other forms of outdoor gear into tactical kit, right?
Yep.
So what was your first kind of product? Because I kind of remember when you started going out, you were Persec aware back then. And your first product was your belt, right?
Yeah.
So how'd you go about kind of, like, why did you make a belt?
Why?
That was your first thing, yes.
Well, I mean, like I said before, I mean, belts were always just something that I was never happy with. I mean, I had purchased a lot of other companies' belts, and it just didn't really seem to work. Like, I mean, these huge battle belts and all that kind of stuff, it was just too big, bulky, what have you. So, you know, I went to sort of just almost just like a basic rigger's belt, which was just, you know, had no rigidity to it. It wasn't a two-piece system. So, you know, you were threading it through your pants and then threading your pouches as you would kind of go along.
Yeah, that was really annoying.
Yeah. It was. So, you know, then you start thinking, okay, well, maybe if I have like a two-belt system, so I got my pants belt, then I'll put like the belt over and I'll use some type of belts, keepers. But, you know, trying to manipulate that stuff, if you got a plate carrier on or a backpack with a chest rig, you know, I mean, it's a nightmare. So, you know, Velcro came into play, so I started messing around with, you know, two belt systems utilizing Velcro, and it just kind of, you know, many iterations, it just sort of turned out to the first belt that came out.
So your first belt that came out,
Sure.
I remember I saw like a little gunfighter belt or whatever they call them nowadays, and I was like, because at that time I was running a big battle belt, like the donut, you know, that people used to have back then, and I saw one of these and I'm like, whoa, that's just like a normal size belt that you can wear that has your kit on it. And your first belt wasn't made of the same material as the current belt is, right?
No, like anything else, all of these materials have specifications because they come from the military, right? And so the first webbing I was using is what, an A55301. And
that means nothing to me, but
yeah.
Yes.
So it was just a 2-inch wide webbing, and it wasn't very rigid at all, but it was really all that I could get access to. Because the other part of this thing is where do you buy all of this stuff from? And so that was something that was easily accessible to me, and I started with that. And so the very first like, you know, half dozen belts were all made of that. And then
people are still rocking it this day.
Probably.
Yeah.
And once I went to this stuff, which is actually scuba webbing,
right?
And
it's like a resin impregnated kind of thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it was, you know, back in, you know, scuba, well, diving has changed, but when they were utilizing like actual physical weight belts. That was the webbing that they were using, and you know, they would have put like this resin in it just to add even another layer of rigidity to it. But it was perfect for you know making a load-bearing belt. So yeah, I just started going to town on that. But I mean, what kind of forced my hand to go, say, from this 2-inch down to a 175 variant was
because this is the Sierra V1.
That's the Sierra V1, and
yes.
that's a 2-inch wide belt. And then it went to this, which this particular one is the Delta, meaning because it's got the D ring.
Right. That's what it designates. Oh,
yeah,
geez.
Delta is and then Sierra is just standard.
Nice.
Standard buckle. And so it was two things that forced my hand. It's just that my source for this webbing dried up.
Jeez.
in any color other than black, which it uses for the inner belt.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of a bummer. And then, but I was getting a lot of requests for these Delta or D-ring buckles.
Right.
So those two things, and now we're down to the 1.75. Is it actually any better?
Fits more pants.
Well, the inner belt is still a 2-inch. I mean,
Okay.
you can. I mean, I do sell like a 1.5 inner if you
Mm-hmm.
want to wear it with more like civilian friendly type pants.
I might ask for that soon. Actually, yeah.
But there's plus and minuses to it because, you know, Molly as a specification, you're dealing with 1-inch wide or 25 millimeter wide webbing.
Mm-hmm.
And on a 2-inch belt, if, you know, your Molly section here is a half inch leaves you 1 inch of space between.
Mm-hmm.
So it plays a lot nicer when you're trying to get your pouches on.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go to a 1.75,
You
you
gotta
obviously
sometimes squish the middle row a little bit,
Yeah,
right? Of whatever you're putting on.
it can be really difficult depending
Yeah.
on the pouch or the attachment means that you're using. So yeah, there's good and bad to it. I mean, but you know, I'm working on a new belt.
Ooh.
And it will be going back to a 2-inch.
Okay. I think we'll talk more about that in
Sure.
a second here. So, in terms of these belts, you've been kind of known in at least the Canadian airsoft community for these belts. I mean, I've been recommending them like crazy. Word of mouth is kind of spreading.
Thank you.
And stuff like that. Yeah, they're fantastic. Just to go back on my story, if you guys haven't watched the belt video that I did, check that out. It kind of shows you how to set it up and my history with the belt and like our thoughts at Siege about how to run one. But I've been using this guy for the better part of 3.5 years or so.
And it shows.
Because it shows. I mean, like it's fraying and stuff, but it's still got a lot of life in it. Like it's not going to quit. But I remember getting this belt from you, and I don't know if you remember, we did like an order of 20 belts.
Yeah, there were a lot of belts.
There's that picture
that came like, through this place. Yeah.
Yeah, they're all on a shelf. You could pull that picture up in front, and that was like a huge order because I used to run the University of Waterloo club.
Okay.
And I got this belt, or I saw I think Narig's belt. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah.
And I was like, that is some cool shit. I want to get that. And we ordered 20 belts from you, and that must have been pretty mean.
Well, you know what? Like that's the snowball process, right?
Yeah, for sure. That is the snowball process.
Yeah.
Yeah. Going on to kit, now you make more than just belts.
Yes.
Yeah, and you've kind of had things go in your inventory and pop out of your inventory and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I remember at one point you made a tiny belt, a 1-inch belt. You can edit this out if I want. Take my belt off.
Yes, the 1.5. Actually.
The 1.5, the little rigger belt.
Yeah.
The EDC. Yeah, these guys. I wear this almost every day for the past, because I got this when you did your showing here back when we were open.
That was years ago, yeah.
That was like 2 years ago. Maybe
I think
more.
it was more than that.
3.
It was probably 3 years ago.
Yeah, so I've been wearing this for 3 years.
It's a little faded.
It's a little faded, but it's actually still really good. You can tell it's contoured to my body now.
Yeah, they do that.
Yeah, they do that. So you made these guys as well, right?
Yeah.
I know there's been some people asking for these to come back.
Yeah.
And you also made slings, I believe.
Yeah.
And now, where are you at, kind of? And like, why do you kind of like? Because a lot of people probably ask, why do some things kind of get quote unquote discontinued, and why do some things kind of pop back in? Of course, the belts are staple; they're always going to be there. But for the other stuff,
Well, as a gear maker, I mean, fundamentally, we're problem solvers, right?
Yes.
You got a problem, I can fix it for you.
Yes. The problem is I have too much money in my wallet, and I need to give it
to
you.
So the thing is that so I have to look at it. Well, what's my problem? And that's usually how I approach most things because it's like, oh, whatever. I need something. How can I fix this?
Yeah.
Right. And so, and I've run into situations where like I've made stuff and I thought, this is it. I'm going to retire on this product.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing happens. Crickets.
Yeah.
And, so that would be a reason why I maybe like discontinue something or stop making it just because for a lack of interest. But then there are things that are kind of steady things that I sell, but because I'm a one-man operation. There's only so many hours in a day, and so many days in a week.
And this isn't your full-time gig.
It is now, but
Awesome.
even still, like, I mean, the snowball just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So even though that I'm doing it full time, I still run into, well, there's only so many hours a day, so many days a week, and I try to keep lead times down as low as I possibly can. So there has to be some give and take of, like, if I'm selling, if the primary thing that I'm selling is my belts, something else is going to have to give to make way for that. And once I sort of got into that full-time realm, that's when, like, these things started to come into play, the chest rig / placards. But going back to those EDC belts, again, it was just, I mean, I was selling them, but it wasn't like a huge seller. But you got to think about, well, you're investing money into something that's specific for that belt only, and can that money be spent elsewhere for something that you're going to sell a lot of? So again, I mean, that's kind of something that so
this is like the McRib.
Well, I guess, I've never had one.
That's good. That's a good thing.
Yeah, but
you're not missing out.
It's just like, as a a growing business, as a young business, you start to learn things about, okay, well, where do I put my money? Where do I devote my time? But I think I'm going to bring these the EDC belts. I think they'll be making a return.
Well, I think this belt is going to outlast me, because I've been using it for a long time, and there's like zero fraying on it. The only thing is it gets more comfortable as it binds to me more.
Yeah, but, and I think I probably have about half a dozen of them at home for my varying waist size. As COVID weight, so to speak. But I mean, it's I still make them for myself. I don't actually have one on today, but
that's cool.
But I think they'll make a comeback.
So Barry, you mentioned the process behind making this stuff and keeping your lead times down. What is like the process of me going to your site? All the site links will be included down below, of course. Me going on your site, ordering something, you making it, and it coming to me. What's kind of the, as much as you can share at least, the process behind that?
Well, because the belts are predominantly custom made in respect to the sizing and then the color combinations between like the base webbing and then the molly looping, it's all made upon demand. So depending on how many orders are stacked in front of you by the time you order, will really sort of dictate the lead times. But I mean, generally I like to keep things at between like 2.5 to 3 weeks.
Okay.
But it kind of sort of leaves problems for other things like the chest rigs, that it's because I'm devoting a lot of time for this, I don't necessarily have then the time to actually make an actual inventory of those. I mean, there's certain things that I do keep, like the zip certs. I do keep a fairly decent supply of like inner belts, all of that type of stuff.
Like accessories to support your product. Right?
Yeah, and like the elastic keepers on the belts and stuff, right? Like all that type of stuff. I always keep in abundance, so those things will usually get out the door within 24 hours. But it's just really just what's going on at the time when the order is placed. But usually it's about 2.5 to 3 weeks.
Okay. And in terms of colors and stuff like that, I know people are crazy. Like there's camo mania right now. Just even not in the tactical / airsoft world, even in the real world, people are crazy about wearing different camouflage and stuff like that. What are the most popular colors, and could you kind of go over that and stuff?
Well, I mean, realistically, the two popular choices, obviously multicam is going to be number one, and then Ranger Green is probably the close second. I mean, you kind of do sort of see, I wouldn't want to say flavors of the month, so to speak, but
trends.
You see trends, like splatter was a thing.
Yes. I have a splatter patch right over here. Or no, never mind, it's on my other rig.
DNC or digital night camo.
Sorry, I have It's a splatter team patch.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is pretty cool stuff.
Yeah. So, and then DNC is another, you know, one, and
Rhodesian.
Now, yeah, Rhodesian, and then you start seeing weird, or I shouldn't say weird, but
novelty.
Yeah,
maybe
prints like this, you know, like this type of thing.
That thing is so cool. I want one of those so bad. I want one of those so bad.
It is so like disgustingly gross, but it's amazing at the same time.
What do you mean disgustingly gross? That's awesome.
You know, like when I made this, I literally just sat back and I looked at it and laughed at it, and just went, oh, it's so hideous, but so amazing at the same time.
That's beautiful, man.
Yeah, you know, like when I see things like this, you know, especially for like a little placard thing, it's just like, yeah, why not? If I come across any weird, unusual patterns, I'll usually try and hop on it.
That's not ripstop. That's just straight Nyko or canvas, right?
It sits 600D Oxford. So yeah, so it's a heavyweight nylon material.
Okay.
It's probably nowhere near as durable as Kedora, but
I mean, yeah, Chest Rig's not seeing too much stress.
Well, but there again, I mean, if you're talking real world applications.
Well, I don't know, man. Like, Miami's popping off right now. So
yeah, I mean, I don't know if I was a bad guy and I saw a dude come through the door wearing this, what I would think. But
you'd say, "Stop! Please rob me," because like that thing's cool as fuck.
Yeah. I mean, just as you know, I look at something like this as just for range hijinks, so to speak,
or playing in here like CQB stuff.
Yeah, I guess the airsoft guys would be would be a thing for them.
Yeah. You did mention earlier about your customer base. What would your customer base be? I mean, I'm not looking like, okay, they're males between the ages of 25, 30. Like, who do you find is buying your stuff?
And to answer you honestly, I have no idea. I mean,
at least within, how much of a percentage maybe is it Canadian, international?
Right now, I would say it's probably 40 to 45% of what I make and sell is in Canada.
Wow. Yeah.
And then
that'll be a lot higher.
No, and then the other part of it is predominantly for the U.S. and Europe and Asia.
Wow, Asia too.
Yeah.
Dang. So you got like people from like Taiwan and Japan buying your stuff.
Japan and Hong Kong.
Oh, damn, home. Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. So
that's cool.
Yeah, you do see a few orders float out to that neck of the world, but it's not. You know, it could always be better, but yeah, I would say right now actually the U.S. has slightly greater sales than what Canada has, but
we got to pick it up, guys.
Well, you know, I mean, for the people who live in Canada, knowing what's going on politically,
I don't blame them.
You know, it definitely will impact business to some degree. To exactly what I don't know, because I mean. You know, getting back to the demographic part of it, I mean, I couldn't say with any great certainty if it's someone in the military, if it's law enforcement, is it, you know, private security, is it a 14-year-old kid in the basement? I have absolutely no idea. I mean, you know, I do get customers reach back out to me and send me pictures of, you know, what it is, and you can go, oh, that guy's in the military. Oh, well, that guy's obviously in law enforcement. Or
so you do have some professional agencies, not going to name any names, of course, getting some of your stuff.
Yeah.
That's cool. That must feel really cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. You know, I mean, it's you know, in a lot of ways, I mean, I'm definitely humbled by the success that, you know, Persec has been. You know, I still sit here and go, people want to buy this stuff? Yeah. Like it still weirds me out, you know.
I want to buy that right now.
Yeah. So yeah, like it still does weird me out, and I am humbled by it all. But but you know, it's Bill C-21 for here in Canada. I mean,
the OIC.
Yeah.
Too,
it's you know, you're making stuff predominantly to support. You know, a certain firearm system that
whether it be airsoft or it be real guns.
Yeah,
I mean, you're carrying a magazine.
Yeah, that is right now is you know, could potentially become, you know, prohibited.
Yeah,
and so you know, it's I can't see myself making rigs for 1022s.
links down below to help out with the efforts against C21. And,
yeah,
you know, that's important because it's guys like me working in this industry. It's guys like you working in this industry that are going to be affected by it, and that's the people that they don't think about. You know?
Yeah, and you know, and it's like 2020 for the carnage that year was.
Yeah,
I mean,
still going on.
It was my best year ever.
Wow. I guess people are bored and they got all the stimmy checks and all the CERT money, right? So.
You know, like, sure, it was, Canada, my sales were here, US and the rest of the world was here, but now it's starting to swing this way.
Yeah.
And whether or not it's because of what's going on.
I'm sure there's a lot of factors.
Yeah, I mean, and it's whether or not just people are just waiting for these lockdowns to end. So, like, why spend money on gear if they don't have to? Mm-hmm. But, yeah, I just, right now I don't know where it's going to go. Mm-hmm. I have no idea.
Yeah, that's really hard to say. And the trend in the market, too, must be like, there's so many.
Yeah, I mean, it's, getting back to, sort of circling back to material science, just the, the things like the product Tigris, which, is a woven polycarb or polycarb plastic, which looks like carbon fiber, but it's not. Mm-hmm. It seems to be all over the place and is the new cool material to be working with. And
it started out as like stuff for bags and luggage.
Yeah. That's where it came from.
Now it's entering the tactical gear world.
Yeah.
And it's exploding.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely has a lot of merits.
We have this Spiritus, the thing too, over here. It's made of that material back here. Yeah, I got one myself. Yeah, it's awesome.
But yeah, I mean, it definitely has a lot of merits to it. Like it's, for example, on my foam boards, those are made of Kydex, and I sew through the Kydex, and which is a thermoplastic.
Yeah, it's the stuff that we did the episode with Airsoft Collectibles holsters, same kind of stuff there. Yeah.
And then the Tigris itself is also a thermoplastic, but this is like sewing butter compared to Kydex,
which is like sewing rocks.
And for a laser cutting, it's it does very well on with laser. Yeah, it's so I mean there's it checks a lot of boxes, so I can understand why people are using it. Because it definitely helps with from a manufacturing, that if all of the lasers done a lot of the work for you, you can just kind of put the stuff out fairly quickly.
Yeah. Barry, we have a lot of products in front of us right now. Some of them you still carry, of course. Most of them you still carry. What are these products? What do you got for us in front of us?
Well, first thing, not all of it is mine.
Yes.
But obviously the belt is something I make. The pouches that are on here are not mine. Yeah. So stepping outside of the belt on here...
the middle placard.
Yeah, so the middle placard, this section here is obviously my piece, which effectively, if I was to remove that, would just be this piece here.
Yeah.
And this is scalable. That I do actually make like an add-on pocket for it, just to give you a little bit more real estate to carry stuff.
Right.
And then you've got the plate carrier here, which isn't mine.
But that's from another dude.
Yeah, another Canadian company. But the phone board is mine. Again, we got the placard, and then here that's a Faro 8 or 3 AC cummerbund, which I've modified it to these quick disconnects.
And just a short little shout out: this plate carrier is from Gear Dynamics.
Gear Dynamics out in British Columbia.
Yes. Hello, if you're watching and you make an awesome plate carrier. I kind of want one, actually. But yeah, so those are kind of your main products: the belt, the placard,
and the phone boards.
Yeah. So out of those, the belt's probably the bread and butter, right?
Yes.
Maybe?
Yes.
Yeah. And the placard. Why did you go making the placard? Because I know there's like a million placards out there right now. The big one, of course. And what was the reasoning behind that?
Again, I started off, I have a problem, and like you said, the little rigs that are out there, I either found were either too small or too big.
Yes.
And you've basically got a design that's going to carry 3 AR mags, and then usually some type of either like a Velcro pouch or a zippered pouch on the front to put other stuff. And most of the time, that will work for you. But there are times when it's a bit too much. Or, you know, and it's like, well, wouldn't it be great if I had something that I could either build up like Lego or bring it down like Lego to whatever it is I want. So I just started off with this, just the placard, which then will, you can flip out the little tabs on the side to put your quick disconnects. We'll turn it into a chest rig. But dimensionally, it's a little larger because most of the rigs were typically about 8 inches on the inside, which I always found to be a little bit too tight.
Yeah.
So I've just widened it up just a little bit, just to serve, just to serve my needs. But it
gives you a bit more gaps with the mags and stuff.
Yeah, it just gives you a little bit more playroom inside. It's just building things up, bringing them down based on what it is that you need to do or want to do with it.
So all of these things are built to order for the most part, except for like the small little accessories you have, like the zip cert for that's.
So I make like what I call a zip cert, which is a zipper insert, which has primarily been used on the Spiritus, the MK3, MK4s, just to turn either that front pocket or the main pocket into a zippered pouch. I mean that's been a really hot item for the 2 or 3 years that I've been selling it.
Yeah, and this phone board here is to fit any phone to use for like even just for storage, or if you're into some cool comms stuff, you can use it for like Zello, the ATAC app, some pretty cool stuff. And these are pretty neat as well. They're made of Kydex, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, and they come in and out, and they're adjustable for tension, and they're a bit more niche, but they're kind of fashionable right now. So cool.
I mean, it's real world, like you said. I mean, it's people just rely on their phones for navigation, for comms, for a multitude of different things. And if you've got it buried in a pouch somewhere, if you're trying to access it, all the time, and but having something like this that you can just flap up, get out of the way, drop it down when you need it.
This is so cool. But then the phone just attaches via Velcro, right? Like just any piece of Velcro on the back of your case, and just like slap it in there. So this can fit a variety of devices.
Yeah, so they come in 2 different sizes. So I spent a lot of time researching phones and cases out there. Yeah. And made a fancy spreadsheet just to kind of find the 2 sizes. So hopefully one of those should fit the
Do you have an iPad Pro size for this?
I'm sure we could make one, but no. Excuse me while I whip this out.
We got the McGraw-Hill math textbook coming out just right there like that.
So basically I took the tray system off of the back of an airplane seat.
Oh yeah, nice. And you know how the Cokes in the tray system always spill everywhere, and there's turbulence. It's just like, that's pretty cool. Getting on to, we mentioned some other companies, and I do want to get to a point to the controversial stuff. Ooh, nice, right?
Nice.
Of course, all these products can be found on your site. Links included down below for that. There's a lot of drama in the gear world, and in any world, airsoft included. We don't like drama, but we also can't avoid it. A lot of people will say that, oh, this is a copy of something, or somebody copies you, and things like that. What is kind of your take on that? Not that I really care. I'm an airsoft, we're copying whatever, right? We're copying real guys. We're copying our loadouts off of a lot of things. But in terms of a gear maker's perspective, like people might look at your rig and say, oh, it's a clone of a Spiritus, or they look at this and say it's a Juggernaut clone, or they look at your belt and they'll say it's like a Ronin clone. It's like I don't know. People will always find stuff to say.
Yeah, I mean, and don't get me wrong. I mean, there is a legitimate case that there are people who are doing full-on replicas.
Yeah, the overseas stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and like even like maybe not so much Canada, but definitely in the U.S. there are guys that are out there making full-on clones. Yeah. Of whatever. But it's the way that how we were talking before, the way things that were like these big, over-engineered pieces of gear, and that the trend is, going to sort of
smaller, lighter, faster.
Smaller, lighter, faster. Yeah. Once you start scaling these things back and peeling the layers off, like if you're, say, specifically talking about like a plate carrier, a SAPI plate is a particular size and a dimension. It is what it is. So if you're designing a plate carrier with the most minimalistic footprint to it, it's going to be the exact same size as the plate.
Yeah.
So the question then becomes, well, if you're going to make something that is just to hold a plate, how can you make it from the other company that's going to be...
How many ways can you sew a hexagon?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So, you know, like, and then you're, you know, if you're playing with, say, with Molly, Molly has a specification about the spacing from, you know, the columns and then the rows. So you have to play in the rules because you don't want to come up with your own system that isn't compatible with any other pouch that is out there. So yeah, these, and you know, the gear companies are all sourcing the materials. I mean, it's primarily because of the berry compliance in the U.S.
They're compliant with you?
Yeah.
Dad
berry.
joke.
Yeah.
Dad joke. Terrible dad joke.
But yeah, so everyone is getting the materials kind of from the same places, and you know, you're going to start to see a lot of similarities, which then kind of goes into like another part of this gear making thing. Like I was saying, like as gear makers, at the essence of it, we're, you know, problem solvers. But sometimes now you start to see fixes for problems that aren't really problems.
Right.
And, you know, so, you know, you will see companies that are trying to...
I got a lot of examples of that. But
yeah, create problems as... whether it be for marketing or just like we said, because once you start scaling this stuff back, you kind of have to try and differentiate yourself somehow from the competition. So there is that. I mean, it's, but you know,
do you have an example of that?
Well, not that I really want to say, but yeah, you do see it.
Fair,
you do see it.
Yeah, I can think of a lot for the airsoft world. It's like, oh, this is like an example to me is going to be like a gun clip, and a gun clip is like clipping the gun to your body with like a buckle or something like that. Yeah. And I'm like, this is not a problem because there's slings, and this is like this is like worse than a sling in every way. But, yeah. But sure, you know, sure, right? Sure. Yeah. So the way I kind of see what you're mentioning earlier is like phones, like the evolution of phones. They all eventually kind of have this convergent evolution. Like, yeah, the iPhone, the Galaxy, the HTC, I don't even know if they're relevant anymore. Whatever, they're all kind of like, they have slightly different features, but there's only so many ways to make a glass rectangle with a processor and stuff inside, right?
Well, yeah.
But now they're starting to make, like you're saying, non-existent problem. Now they're making flip phones again. Yeah. And it's like, huh? You know? So it's like, does anybody actually want this? But apparently there are people that are. So
well, yeah, I mean, it's, you know, we can talk about a lot of products outside of this world that, you know, companies do to, you know, whether it's for nostalgia or whatever, but yeah, I mean, you know, you can have the iPhone whatever model, and then Samsung has their competing model, so dimensionally it's going to be approximately the same.
Yeah, you have the iPhone big and the Samsung big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So that's kind of where you fit into this, and I just...
with like kind of rigs and stuff, right?
Yeah, like specifically with the phone board, I mean, it was just kind of like, well, yeah, I mean, realistically, the phones are either going to be in this size or this size, and it's just this universal, you know, kind of platform that you're not tied into, well, I have to buy the company's case to put it in so I can use their board.
Yeah, what I like about your board is it's universal to a degree.
Yeah.
Yeah. So leading into the kind of next point, for newer players out there that might not really have this kind of criticality yet, it's no fault of their own, because I just think the way that the market kind of is and the way that like YouTube and the media is you see this, and this is the thing that's cool, and eventually you'll move to the point where this is just there to do a job, which is to shoot people, shoot targets or whatever, and then you get into like being more critical about your body, your gear, and stuff like that. So for a new player who wants to kind of decide, maybe they're like starting to develop that sense of critical thinking, that kind of deeper thought into their gear. A lot of them will go repro, like reproduction gear, and a lot of them might look at the real stuff, say it's too expensive. How would you tell the difference between the two? Like, what are your thoughts around that? It's a big question. It's kind of nebulous, but, you know, how would you go about that? Yeah.
Well, on the reproduction gear, the materials used have always been, you know, subpar or inferior to, you know, the real counterpart. And, you know, especially like nowadays where, you know, you're sort of getting fabrics that aren't, you know, the traditional norms of Cadora and, you know, your nylon webbing. You've got, for example, like on these pouches, it's a laminated material. So effectively it's two pieces of 500D Cadora in most cases that has been bonded together through a proprietary means.
Yeah, so it's like got the flexibility of 500, but it's even stronger.
Yeah, so it's thicker, it's stronger, and because it's bonded together, it allows from a manufacturing point that you can, you know, put these laser cut slits like you see in a lot of gear. You know, from a reproduction standpoint, I don't know, you know, if this laminated material, if it was a a knockoff, say it, or a reproduction, how quickly it may come apart. And then, you know, then you still going to be sewn together in most cases. So, you know, now you've got two problems. You've got the material itself falling apart, never mind the actual build quality of the stitching. But, you know, then with Tigris, you know,
you're going to start seeing repro Tigris in the next few years.
Oh, I'm sure it's probably already been worked on.
Yeah,
I haven't seen any.
Yeah,
but I'm sure it's going to be.
There's a lot of repros of this stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So, and you know, I've held a lot of reproduction gear in my hand.
Yeah.
And when you compare it to the real thing, it's a night and day difference in a lot of cases.
Yeah. Other than the price, of course, and that's the biggest thing is going to be the price. And what I'll say to the price is that when you're buying something from Barry, something from Cry, or whatever, you know, any of these, I would say, higher end brands.
Sure.
You're not just paying for the thing. You're paying for the design work and the brain and the person and the people behind that thing. Which is why, like, yeah, sure, they might even use the same material for the overseas made clone of whatever. They might use the same material, they might even have okay stitching. But the fact that my money is going to the person that thought of this and the person that designed it and made it to the way they wanted to make it is, you know, it's cool. It's like when you go to the dentist, you're not paying for the guy to like pull your tooth out. You're paying for that education and everything to know how to do that. Of course, the dentist people, you know, people say it's a rip, whatever. But the point being is that there's a lot more that goes into the cost of the gear than just the gear itself.
Correct.
And that's something that I personally think is important, is to support local, support good makers and stuff like that. But of course, you know, going back to repro stuff, there is a price thing, and there is like that idea of good enough for airsoft especially. So how would you kind of look for, like, sorry to cut you off there, but like, what are the differences that you see? What are the kinds of things that you look for, and what are your thoughts around that?
It's kind of a tough question to answer because in a lot of cases it's going to be like inside baseball type of stuff. Like I'm going to say, ooh, you know, just look how straight that stitch is. Like you're probably going, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
So I kind of look at it a little differently. Like I look, you know, a little bit more critical. I can say, oh, okay, you know, typically in a, say, like a pouch or wherever, this may be a problem area. I can kind of look at it and go, oh, wow, okay, this is put together really well. You know, I mean, I definitely would be harder for someone who doesn't know about how these things are put together. Yeah. How to, you know, really critically think about, you know, how good they are.
Craftsmanship.
Yeah. You know, like, I think, and that's why, like, a lot of companies sort of rely on this, what would be the word? The exposure that, yes, you know, company A has a lot of pictures or posts where, you know, such and such military units are using their gear. So because that's their job, they're using it day in, day out, doing what they do, that gear, if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. And, you know, whether how tight the stitching may be or, you know, the way it's cut, the way it's put together, it's, you know, again, for someone who maybe doesn't know anything about sewing or basically how putting these things together, it's kind of hard to say. I mean, I can look at something and go, hey, well, you know, this is what I see as a piece of quality gear. But, I mean, that's just the actual building of it. But, you know, the design element, again, that really comes down to knowing your gear, knowing yourself, knowing where you may have a deficiencies either in yourself or your gear, and trying to fix it. And, you know, maybe a company has had that problem or sees that problem, and they design a piece of something, a piece of gear that will remedy or help, you know, alleviate that problem for you. So, you know, there's sort of the two halves to that coin.
Yeah, and I think that's really important to look at what you're getting and to kind of know yourself. Like if you're a new player, and there's the opposite side of the spectrum where you have players that are a little bit more affluent, not going to name any names, but they buy the best stuff and they have no idea how to use it.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, oh, this is the best. It costs the most. You know, they buy like a Cry JPC2 and then they put like a Spiritus or Haley thing on it and then they're like, whatever, right? They go full 9 yards of everything and then they can't do a consistent reload. So there is the other side of the spectrum too, which is all gear, no skill.
Yeah.
yeah.
All show and no go.
Exactly, all show and no go. And although Airsoft is a giant fashion show, I do think that there's genuine use cases of this stuff, and that's the coolest thing about Airsoft is that I can buy a G-code mag pouch, I can buy an Airsoft collector holster, and then I can like get good with them, and I can actually apply them in game. And that's something that is really cool to me.
And then you know, you can then transition because you can take out all of your Airsoft stuff from here. Yeah. And if you want to go and shoot the real thing, you can do that. And it's, you know, for the most part, a seamless transition, at least from a gear point of view.
Yeah, if you get good stuff.
But, you know, again, like going back to your nods, I mean, at least from, you know, I know in Airsoft, I mean, it seems to be everybody's got them these days.
Well, yeah, it's getting there. It's getting there. Yeah.
But the other thing that people don't consider is that a lot of the materials don't play well under IR. So you know what you think is a black pouch or a black bag under
you get that glow
under nods, it just glows white.
Yes.
And like people don't take that in consideration, especially if it is Airsoft that you're thinking about. You know, if you're going to be playing against guys who got a lot of nods, you know, and you've got like this cheap gear on, you may be just a walking flashlight on the field
at night. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. There's a lot of little considerations. I mean, obviously, going back to an earlier point, I think people should make smart decisions with their money.
Yeah.
But when I see someone that has like a bajillion guns that, you know, half of them don't work and they just want to fill a gun wall, that's totally cool. That's your prerogative. But take some of that money, a little bit of that money, I would say, and put it into some quality kit and then practice with it. I think you really make that go a long way.
Well, I mean,
in my personal opinion,
and even pushing it one step further. I mean, I understand the collecting, whether it be Airsoft or real firearms. But if you're going to be shooting either of those platforms, you know, if you've got 12 different guns, how can you be proficient at 12 different guns? If you've only got 2 guns, 3 guns, and you train with those guns all of the time, you're going to be very good at it.
Yeah,
and whether it be Airsoft or real guns. So,
yeah.
You know, it's you know, I always think of it. You know, you take your guns, you build them, you make them, you put into them what you put into them. Once you're happy with them, you go and shoot the hell out of them. And you make sure that you know, and then you can put money into gear where you need it.
Yeah, to support that, and I think there needs to be a bit of a paradigm shift with. I mean, honestly, like. We both work in the industry, but even like consumer cultures, having this stuff is the experience for people, and I think that's kind of messy, especially when it comes to a competitive sport like Airsoft, where the stuff allows you to have the experience, the stuff allows you to do something, and I think people have to kind of look at it from that perspective. It's like having this belt. Yes, there's pride of ownership in it. There's pride of ownership with having nods, gun, whatever, right? But all this stuff, the only reason that I get it is because it allows me to do stuff. Not because having this stuff is cool. I mean, it is, but that's not the primary goal. And I think when people say, oh, why are you spending money on that kit and stuff like that, well, you have to see you're spending money to do something with that kit and not just to have it. So when somebody says, why am I spending $145 on a belt? I'm saying I'm spending $145 for this thing that will last me 3 years, made by a guy that I know. And for it not to fail, and for it to speed up my processes of reloading, indexing my pistol, having a good stable platform, that stuff. That's what the money's going into. It's not having the belt. It's being able to do the stuff with the belt.
I always look at it, the best piece of gear is the one you don't ever think about.
Yes, exactly.
Right? If you're wearing it and using it, and if you're not thinking about like, if you're if it's not in your mind and it allows you to concentrate on the task at hand, that's the best piece of kit you can own.
100%. It's like great design is invisible.
Yeah.
Right? It's the one that you don't think about, that you don't even see.
Yeah.
And I think that's what kind of the money goes into. So there is a lot going into all of this stuff. What are kind of the future plans you have for this? You mentioned that this is kind of your full-time thing right now. Where do you plan to go with this? Is there any new things you're developing? As much as you can tell us, of course. I'm sure some of it is secret.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, early on, there is a new belt that is coming, hopefully sooner than later. But I mean, the material side of things, yes, there will be more laminated materials. There will be Tigris. There will be laser cutting. So, with that in mind, it opens up a whole new world of where it can go. So, it's where I, want to take Persec. I'm just kind of just letting it go where it goes, and just kind of develop stuff as I need to or want to, and just hopefully that people want it. There's a need for it, but that's really I'm always looking at stuff and figuring out what if there would be just for certain materials and processes of making the stuff of is there
doing it better.
Well, yeah, just of new pieces of gear. It's just, it's. I'm always thinking and looking.
Yeah, no, and we're super excited to see what kind of comes next. I think that having a nice company within Toronto, especially within Canada, to make this stuff is awesome, and super looking forward to hopefully having some pieces in here that people can get. And for those of you who don't know, where's the best place to contact you?
Well, probably just through Instagram. Yeah. I try to stay away from Facebook, but Instagram.
Yeah, me too.
But you can just find me there at Persec Gear. It's probably the best way. Just either a comment or a message.
Yeah. Or email.
Or or even going through the website and just using the contact section within the persecgear.ca. I'll try to respond to it quickly as I can.
Yeah, for sure. And as a final kind of note, I'm going to try to ask people this nowadays, but what kind of dad advice would you impart on our viewers as a longtime member of the community and as someone that is a maker in the community?
For what part of it?
Oh shit, I didn't think about that. Well, at Chairsoft, we do accommodate for a wide variety of players. Yeah. So we have hardcore milsimmers, we have speed softers, we have new players, vets, kind of like a hub of Airsoft in Toronto. So I guess that is a big part of the community. But maybe in terms of a new player, because older players are generally a little more set in their ways, they're a little more stubborn. Unless you want to address that, then how about this? One thing for a new player, one thing for a salty old vet.
You know what? Really, the only thing I could say, and it applies to both, is just don't take yourself too seriously and have fun doing whatever it is you're doing. If you can, if it gives you joy, then that's really all the motivation you need to do anything. Yeah,
especially nowadays. I would find when things are pretty doom and gloom, and for a lot of people in the news and everything like that. And keeping your frown upside down is generally good advice.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, well, I think that about wraps things up. This was probably one of my favorite episodes to film, and getting a chance to play around with this stuff and to have a look at it was super awesome. Thanks for coming, Barry. We hope to have you again here in the future when things kind of evolve and develop, and we'll obviously keep in contact. We got some really interesting media projects coming, perhaps, soon. And let us know how you like it in the comments below and all that stuff. And for those of you who stayed with us this long, thank you so much. We are going to have a giveaway for something posted on our IG and Facebook soon, so stay tuned for that. And we'll see you on the next one. Stay safe out there, everybody. And like Barry said, just have fun, everybody. So really important thing. Goodbye, and we'll see you soon.
All right, see everybody.
Bye.